All right, well, this week in a Manhattan courtroom, jury selection is underway for the Donald Trump hush money criminal trial. It may be a challenge to find jurors who don't have an opinion about the former president. Joining me now is a former prosecutor and current defense attorney and founder of the TexasDefenseFirm.com, Jeremy Rosenthal. Thank you, Jeremy, for joining me.
Thank you, Jay.
Well, let's explain to the viewers the legal process for, I guess, ensuring a fair trial in a high-profile case like this.
The way that jury selection works is that it's not jury selection, it's really jury deselection. One of the most common questions I get after a jury trial is over is, why did you pick me? How did I get chosen for this? Well, you're not really picked like you would be picked for a kickball team or a basketball team or something like that. The better way to think of it is that you're really kind of left over. Meaning that that basically everybody has had a chance to eliminate you and you're still left. So the judge has the ability to eliminate you. We call that a challenge for cause. If you say that you can't follow the law, for instance, if you say, I'm going to hold it against the defendant if they exercise their Fifth Amendment right to testify, that would be a reason to eliminate you. And each party in this type of case in New York State has 10 what are called peremptory strikes, meaning that Donald Trump and his team can strike 10 people for any reason that they want. Maybe they looked at him funny. Maybe they don't like his employment. Maybe the juror looks too much like Donald Trump's siblings who he might not like. And the prosecutor gets the same latitude. They can strike 10 people for any reason that they want. And if you don't fall into one of those three strike categories, then you could very well be on the panel.
Okay, so with that being said, I'm doing this off of, of course, movie knowledge. We all get our legal expertise from movies. If that's the case, if each side gets 10, then I guess there would you got to have 12 jurors. So there would then 10, 20, 32, I guess, jurors, I guess you would see that you would need. So why are they asking for thousands of people or sending out thousands of letters?
Because the judge is going to strike almost all of them, and those are unlimited, right? If you can't follow the law, then you are disqualified as a matter of law. And what this judge did is he put out a letter to the parties a week, 2 weeks ago, and said, here's how we're going to do this. We're going to, and the judge said, I'm going to ask everybody whether or not you're just biased. Okay, if you are just the wrong juror, and if you raise your hand, you're gone. The judge says, normally I would bring these people up to the bench and talk to them and see if, are they really biased? Can they put that aside and follow the judge's instructions to do that? The judge says, we're not wasting all that time just to salvage a handful of people. We're just going to cut them loose. If you make the second round, what they're doing in this case is they're reading to you 42 questions on a questionnaire. Everybody agreed to the questions. I think that there's 7 or 8 that the parties didn't agree on, but the other 35 questions they were good with. And then if you advance in the playoffs long enough, and I think then if they individually talk to you. So if you're still left over, you may be able to burn a strike. But yeah, I mean, this is the toughest jury pick in American history. If you really think about it. So the fact that they need thousands of people shouldn't be, that's no surprise. Monday they had 96, not a single one qualified. Yesterday, I guess out of 96 they had 7, and they're going to bring another 96 tomorrow.
Jeremy, what's to stop? We know that this country is hyper-partisan. What's to stop one? Because it only takes one juror to get on that jury and know for a fact that he's my guy, man. I don't care, ride or die with him. I'm not going to convict him.
That's the scary part, right? The prosecution doesn't want somebody sneaking on that's going to just acquit him, that's on a secret mission to do that. Donald Trump doesn't want a juror who just hates his guts to sneak on and do the opposite thing. But jurors, when they're questioned, they're under oath. And when they're under oath like that, there can be accountability if they say things, if they get caught in a lie, for instance, then they could there could be some consequences. They had extensive questioning on social media and who they follow on social media and things like that. So there are probably a handful of things that I think are verifiable, independently verifiable, that if somebody's just lying about, maybe you catch him. Maybe you don't catch him today, unfortunately. Maybe it's down the road. Also, I mean, the judge is probably going to keep admonishing these jurors. Look, if you haven't been able to tell, this is kind of a big deal, and there's a lot of money being poured in this from every which way, and a lot of resources. And you know, if you got your own agenda, you know, pretty pleased with sugar on top, now's not the time to do this. We really want to get this case done. We want this man to have a fair trial, and we just don't really want to have to do this again. So now's not the time for your book deal.
Right. So we know how hard it is to find 12 jurors, but you're going to need alternates. How many alternates do you normally have in something like this?
Most trials have 2, maybe 3 alternates. This one, I think the judges selected 6. So they're looking for 18 total jurors. I think the judge is estimating that the trial's going to take about 6 weeks. And you never know. Folks are going to come down with COVID. Somebody's mom's aunt's brother's going to have an appendicitis, and because of the car trouble, they're not going to be able to make it. So you never know when you're going to have to impanel one of those alternates.
With the media circus that this is going to turn out to be, the media coverage on it, will these jurors be sequestered?
Absolutely. I can't see a universe where the judge doesn't, you know, throw these people in a cave, turn off all their social media, all their television access, and let them read comic books for the next 6 weeks. I mean, these folks are going to be, I would be pretty surprised if they weren't sequestered.
Is it still $45 a day in New York if you get sequestered?
I don't know. Not a lot of people in this for the money, but yeah, I think with inflation, maybe I would hope that they're a little more cognizant of taking folks away, and they feed them. You know, you get that, right.
Okay.
If you've seen that show Jury Duty, I think it was right. I think they had some pretty big fights over what are we going to have for dinner, right?
Yeah, that was a great show. How much trust does the public have in this process? Again, we're very partisan, but how much trust do we have?
I think that the fact that we are focusing so much on a jury trial, on a criminal jury trial, and all of the protections and all of the imperfections, I think the mere fact that we're talking about it is a great thing. Because your average criminal defendant is not the former president of the United States. And so there's a lot of very real people with very real problems that come into our court system every day. And it's really important that we trust our court systems and that we have faith in these foundations. But again, there's a lot of imperfections, and those imperfections we need to take the long view of and make sure that we nail this thing down even better, right? That our processes, that we are able to, you know, make it as fair as we can. I worry, of course, I think we all do, that this is not a fair process, and it may not be a pretty process at times. I hope that I hope that the court system here, whether Donald Trump is acquitted or convicted, I hope that Americans come out of this feeling better about their government. As a lawyer, I think that's pretty important to me. I know that's important to other professionals who make this our livelihood. But again, there's a lot of ugly stuff here too, and I think that the legal profession, the judiciary, would be served well to listen to any criticism that's out there.
I know the ordinary citizen, such as myself, wants to know, why is there a gag order on the former president?
It is fairly common for a judge to try to limit what a litigant can say in a case where there's a jury pool. If you think of the mafia cases, right, the mob bosses, they don't want people out there kind of talking to witnesses, harassing witnesses. The lawyers can always do that. And you know, the judge, I think he would tell you that he's trying to do it to protect court staff, to protect individuals, to do things like that. It's one of those things, though, that he does it at his own peril, right? Because we're talking about having faith in the integrity of this process, and this is certainly something that can be construed as, you know, he's flexing a little too much, perhaps, and I think that people who are watching this from a distance might say that this is a little unfair, but there is precedent for it, and the judge is within his legal abilities to do it.
Sure. When it comes to prosecuting a former president, Jeremy, which has never happened in a criminal courtroom before this, what unique challenges lie ahead for DA Alvin Bragg?
It's a paper case. Their biggest challenge is making Michael Cohen believable. I mean, that's kind of what they have to do if they want their conviction. They've got all of these documents that kind of that show the money trails. That's clear enough. But the case is about, well, what was the intent, right? What was the intent behind taking this money and paying it in the way that we're paying it? That has to come from the humans, right? That has to come from Michael Cohen. That has to come from Stormy Daniels. And as a prosecutor, you're kind of trained, and you sort of know that, look, I mean, a lot of times your witnesses, your star witnesses, there's going to be a lot of fleas on those dogs, right? I mean, nobody who is hanging around a drug deal is going to really be that credible, right? So if we're at a trial about a drug deal that went wrong and then people got shot, well, the witnesses that you're going to have to rely on, a lot of them have a lot of problems. That's the biggest challenge for the DA, for Alvin Bragg in his office, is to make Michael Cohen a credible witness. The case is all about him, from my standpoint, unless or until Donald Trump, if he decides to take the stand.
How does the defense press their case? How do they present it? How do they get out of this?
If I'm defending this case, I go after Michael Cohen, right? He is kind of an easier target. There's a lot of paper out there that's on him. There's a lot of, there's just a really long history with that guy, right? And he's shown in the past, he's written books. He's tried to profit from these things. He's been to jail himself. So that's the obvious route that you take. Also, when you have a person like Donald Trump, right? He's always going to be surrounded by a handful of people that are really supposed to be taking care of the details, right? I think Mr. Trump even made a statement the other day to the effect that, look, I mean, my accountants handle these things, my lawyers handle these things, and yeah, they put it in front of me and I sign it, but I mean, I'm focused on big picture things. This was 3 weeks before the 2016 election. If you noticed, I was a little busy those days. So I don't necessarily have direct control of all of those things. So you've got kind of a buffer defense there too. Those are the things that I would anticipate that Mr. Trump, how he and his team defend the case.
As you know, mentioned, Michael Cohen has been to jail, also reporting to jail, if not already, a chief financial officer, was it Weiselberg? I think he also, do you find him to be a witness in this case as well?
I don't know that he'll be as central as Michael Cohen, but there's going to be a lot of folks that they parade up there. And, you know, we focus on Michael Cohen, we focus on Stormy Daniels. Those are kind of the sexy names that we associate. Pardon the pun with Miss Daniels, but you know, and they've got the Playboy person as well. but there's, they've got the whole media trail with the whole catch and kill strategy that I think we've heard the DA's office use. 6 weeks is a lot of folks. So I think you're going to see quite a lot of people, but yeah, I think that the star witnesses are certainly the ones the public's already heard about.
If former President Trump was your client, would you let him take the witness stand?
Donald Trump has an absolute right to testify in his own defense. That's the Fifth Amendment, and he has the right to not testify, and he has the absolute right to testify, and he can overrule his attorney. Any and every, most lawyers are going to tell their client not to testify in this instance. Statistically, I've not seen a single statistic from any study, whether it be the American Bar Association or a law review. I've not seen any statistic which suggests that it helps you to testify in your own defense. They all say you're more likely to lose. Now, some of those cases are misleading, because if you have a capital murder where the defendant's DNA is in 18 places, right, and he's confessed 5 times, well, okay, a lot of times you got to throw that Hail Mary, put the defendant on the stand. So that's going to sort of skew that statistic. Testifying in your own defense is a good strategy for self-defense. It can be a really effective strategy in a he said, she said case. This is a documents case. And again, if you're going to win it, you're going to win it through Michael Cohen. And if Mr. Trump decides to take the stand, in my amateur psychological lawyer experience, it really flips the script. The jury, what they'll do is they'll sort of go from evaluating the strengths and the weaknesses of the case to the strengths and the weaknesses of this witness. And again, it's just a really document intensive case. And it just takes Mr. Trump saying the wrong thing, or if they catch him in an inconsistency, whether it's intentional or unintentional, that could decide the thing. So I think his lawyers are going to do everything possible to keep him off the stand. But I think if any of us have learned anything in the last 8 years with Mr. Trump's way of his style, he's like the Frank Sinatra song. He's going to do it his way, right? So
Yeah, he is.
We'll see.
One final question, Mr. Rosenthal. If convicted, as you said, there is a felony attached to this. 50% of the people polled say if he's found guilty, he should not be president. But with that being said, we all know the polarization of this country. What is the penalty that could happen to Mr. Trump if he is convicted?
He faces a range of punishments. Every single count that he's facing, and I think there's 34 of them. He is facing. He can be sentenced up to 4 years of jail for each one. Sentences can be either concurrent, meaning they all run at the same time. The judge could say, Mr. Trump, I sentence you to 4 years jail on each of these cases, but they're all going to run together, so he gets 4 years total. You can do 34 times 4, which are consecutive. Another thing that is possible there's 2 things really that are more possible or probable. One is that he gets community service and supervision, meaning he gets probation for these. That's what I think is the most likely outcome. He still gets labeled as a felon, but he is on probation. And only because this is not a theft case. This is not a case where there's going to be a victim who's going to get on the stand and say, this ruined everything for me. So I don't see this necessarily as a jail case. Probably what happens if the jury renders a guilty verdict and the judge issues a sentence, probably Mr. Trump's team appeals the sentence. He doesn't have to come up for a bond for this one. He can appeal it. He appeals this sentence, and then we sit and wait for his punishment to be enacted whenever that appeal comes back in a year or 2 years. That is what I think is the most likely outcome if he is convicted.
Okay, and so let's say he's, voted in the presidency in November. So is this a state charge? Or this is not a federal charge, because then he cannot, I guess, give himself a pardon, right?
That's exactly right. This is the state of New York is the sovereign here. So if he's going to get pardoned or commuted, it would be the governor of the state of New York. I'm not 100% of who that is these days, but I'm pretty sure that's not a political ally of his.
That's right.
So we would be in uncharted waters.
Yeah. Well, listen, we'll have to keep an eye on it, as I'm sure you will. Former prosecutor, current defense attorney, Jeremy Rosenthal, thank you for your time. And if you wouldn't mind, I'd like to catch up with you in a couple weeks' time once this thing all gets going, and kind of give us an idea of what's happening there in Manhattan.
Would love to, Jay. Thank you.